Hi, my name's Tony Groves. Welcome to the first episode of Leadership Lessons from the Front. Joining me today, I have Luke Brown from the New Zealand Dairy.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me along, Tony. Good to be here. Hey, so a bit of a background on myself. I've been with the dairy industry for about 15 years now. Then I've a bunch of work with Fonterra here in New Zealand, and then have done work with them offshore. So I've spent time in manufacturing environments, technical environments, and then I went to the UK and based in Europe for about 4 years, just out of Amsterdam, and was doing a whole lot of business development and building milk pools over there for Fonterra, and then moved to Singapore, where I spent another 4 years in Asia in the food service business. And some of the tough things during that time, or the challenges, and also the really exciting stuff actually, was working across cultures and time zones. So you can have two countries that are right next to each other, but the way that people think and the way that people just do stuff is different. And so how do you connect in with those people, and how do you get the most out of what you're trying to do and get a really good outcome? And then a couple of years ago, so we spent about 10 years offshore, and a couple of years ago, my wife and I moved back to New Zealand, and she's from Christchurch. We had our first little kid, and so we came home, and I didn't want to be the least favourite son in the family, so I thought better come home and have the grandkid near the grandparents. Yeah. And now we've got two little girls, which is absolutely amazing. And and as I said, my wife is here as well. She's got the patience of a saint, and just really enjoying this life stage of raising a young family.
So what are some of the challenges that you currently face in your role as a leader?
Some of the challenges I currently face as a leader is focusing on the right things. So some of the challenges that I currently face are actually probably long-term work on for me. It's just focusing on the right things at the right time, and making sure that when I am focusing on them, I'm actually using that time effectively. So what I mean by that is that when you're working on something, are you actually thinking on the things that you can control and make a difference, or are you rehashing things out that have already happened, you can't do anything about it, and you should just move on? So that's from a work sense, that makes a lot of sense. But there's also like a real crossover when you go to your family life, and we were speaking about before about with COVID, and you're working from home and you've got your office, but you also you're juggling your time with the trying to do the family time. And so you're saying, well, am I doing a good job of of everything, or am I doing a half pie job of everything because I'm not present when I'm doing it?
Do you have a process or a structure that you use to direct your thoughts and attention?
There's some really good processes out there. So there's like prioritization matrices, and there are planning tools. There's a lot of good stuff out there. What I've actually found for myself is really simple. So I run lists. So I have a list on my phone now where if I've thought about something, I just bung it into my notes on my phone, and then I forget about it. And so I don't, because I can't do anything about it then. So that clears the head and leaves me thinking about the things I should be. And then when I'm thinking about the day, I'm actually planning up. So I'll do a rough plan of what I need to cover or what needs to be done the day before, and then I'll revisit that at the start of the next day. So for me, it's as simple as that.
So I'd be really interested in hearing a little more about some of the hardest lessons that you've learned about yourself when you're faced with adversity.
Geez, no, I've learned a lot of lessons. Adversity. You know what? I actually think this comes a lot to. This is going to be different for it's different for everyone, but your personality actually plays a huge role in this. So for me, when the going gets tough, I tend to focus in and try and remove noise and just get stuff done. I also, if things are going in the general right direction, if, say, for example, somebody gave a suggestion and it was like, right, that's more or less what I want to head, I don't particularly need to argue the semantics of it. I will take that on and just move. As long as I'm going in the general direction where I need to go, I'm fine. So I'm not analysing the situation as critically when I'm under pressure. And some of the hardest lessons I've learned about myself, when you're removing those when you face adversity, is actually I remove the noise. But the downside of that is that I probably don't communicate as well as I should do. And when you're in adversity, that's the time when you really should be communicating more. So because your people need to have the direction, and it's not that there's a direct your direct team. I'm talking about people around you, your colleagues, whether it's your family, your wife, your kids, or your boss, or just whoever, good colleagues, as I was saying. You need to communicate so people actually know what's going on, and you can give direction, you can help focus things, and you also can keep things progressing instead of inefficient use of time or energy or worry, those things that just don't add value and don't help get to a good outcome. Those are the challenges I face around that communication and probably delegating effectively. Tunneled vision, or you get a reduced vision. So I know that when I get to those, when the pressure starts coming on, I've actually got to consciously stop, put my head up, and look around and say, who do I need to be communicating with? I've actually never, I don't think I've ever really had problems about keeping to move forward. I've always found that if you can always do one more step. You've got to enjoy what you're doing, but you can always do one more step. And so, what keeps me going is, I ask myself a few questions. Is like, if, say, for example, I've got tremendous respect for my wife, and I think she does. There are many things that she does that are far better than I can do. And I always, there's certain things I look to her and go, geez, what would Jacqueline do in this situation, or how would she do it? And then I think, if she came in here now, she knows me really, really well. So if she came in here now, would she be happy with what I was doing, or would she be saying, hey, you can do a bit better than that? And so that's one thing that I keep on that keeps me going when I've got certain people for different situations, people that I admire, and I've also got my own internal bell measure to say, hey, can I do better? Is this the best that I can do, or am I happy? Am I adding value? And does this make sense? That's what keeps me moving forward. Different role models for different situations. I can think of when I first started working for Fonterra, my first boss he's had such a positive influence on me, and I looked up to him for quite a long time. I still look up to him, but in that sense, when you first join a new team, and this was somebody that would be the first person in to a situation and the last out. He practiced what he spoke about, but he really knew his craft well. So he knew his craft well, and because he was very happy to be able to share that with others and genuinely helping others. He really cared about his people, and you felt that when you were going to do something, you actually had somebody that you could aspire to be like, and to actually really get the best out of yourself, because he was always getting the best out of the people around him in a really positive way. So he was a really good role model for me. since those early days of when I first started, I've actually found that I've got different role models or parts of people for different situations. So, if I'm, if I was doing some of my sport, I'm just trying to, you're just trying to run that little bit longer or a little bit harder, or get up that last hill. I might use. I've got another good friend that we're in a pretty friendly challenge rivalry, and I'm thinking like, geez, they would do this, they would push themselves through. And then if I was in something else with public speaking, then I've got another role model that I use. So different people for different situations.
Yeah, I've got the same thing. I've got certain role models for certain situations also. There's General McChrystal, for example, when it comes to public speaking and presence, he's somebody who I look up to. And that's what sort of keeps my thoughts and my focus in the right direction so I can continue moving forward. But just like you said, I've got different role models for different situations. And I find that really important and really helpful for me personally, because it's leading into my next question, actually, is that's what keeps me personally from getting bogged down in the negativity of the moment. So, I hear a lot of people talking about how they get bogged down and overwhelmed with the negativity of a certain adverse situation. So what is it that you do that prevents you from getting bogged down? What is it that keeps you on track and moving forward?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And when I think about that, I mean, I can think about, geez, I've had some really tough situations in the past, but they've all been different, right? So, some situations you go, it's easy to define. Something happened, it was pretty shit, but then it's over and it's a defined period of time. Other things just work their way over time. Maybe you've got a living situation and it's not great, or you've got you're at work and the culture of the business starts to degrade over time, and over several years, and then just one day you just realize that you've been feeling pretty bad for a really long time. So there's different ways that you can find yourself in a negative situation or a downward spiral. And so I've actually this is one of the benefits of having someone that knows you really well. So my lovely wife, she knows when I've been brooding or starting to too long, and she'll tell me to. Well, I was about to say she asked me the question, but she doesn't ask. She just tells me to move on. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, sometimes you just need to be told, Tony. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing actually I've started to do, and this kind of comes back to that earlier one about focusing on the right things and utilizing your time and can you add value to it. Well, actually, what I was doing was I'm a big believer of exercise. Do it every day, and a bit of a grumpy person if I don't get to do my exercise. But what I was doing was that at night I'll go out and do some long walks or go for a run. I was finding that I was replaying while it's a good distressor, I was actually replaying the things that had happened during the day or some work situations. But there's actually very little time of that was actually adding value. I couldn't change something. You can get really quickly. There might be once or twice you might get a gnarly problem that you've got to think through. But by and large, what I was actually doing was just self-indulging, and going on this replaying a loop in my head when I actually didn't of a situation that's actually it's done, it's dusted. So what I've actually started to do is I'm actually doing things that are completely non-related in my say on my walks, for example. So that means that I'm listening to podcasts actually, and they are all sorts of things, comedies, things about the life, about trees, just things that are just enjoyable, that are non-related to a situation. Because when I come back to work or come back to the situation, I'm actually refreshed, and my head is in it's got a lot more gas in the tank to do something productive with it. And when I'm going to the next thing about you're hanging out with your kids and you're playing with them, I'm not actually thinking about that other thing that was pretty negative, and I can't change.
Yeah, right. So it sounds like you're taking a lot of time to do the things that you enjoy, to decompress from the situation and recharge the battery so you can keep moving forward.
Yeah, just to reiterate on that one, if you can't add value on a situation, like you can think about it for so much, you can reflect on something, but you can do too much of it. It becomes self-indulgent, and it's just about knowing when to say, hey, look, enough's enough. You either fix it, forget it, move on.
So it sounds like reflection is a pretty important tool for you personally to help you make sense of what's going on and then what you need to do next to continue moving forward. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So reflection for me is massive, and that's for me, it's just who I am, but it's part of that. If you're a lifelong learner, or you've got a professional curiosity of just how things work and in the world, I feel you always have that reflection piece as well, and you're going, replaying situations, like what can you learn from that? How would you do something better? What can you take away that worked really, really well? And you go, oh geez, I'll do that again. But there's a balance with everything, and then that's what I was going with before, is just to make sure you're not doing 100% reflection. Otherwise you get a bit hard on yourself.
So there's a certain point where you go, this is as much as I can get out of this. There's no need to think about it anymore, or I risk overthinking what's going on.
Yep, perfect, bang on.
So especially now more than ever, we've got so many challenges in the business environment. And as a leader, we all have to make difficult and unpopular decisions. So how do you prepare yourself for communicating those decisions to the people who will be affected by them?
Oh yeah, man, this is one of those things that I just do not enjoy, and I can't imagine there'd be too many people that would enjoy doing that. But yeah, especially you just, sometimes you go, the more you know about the people, like the harder it gets, right? And so I've actually found that it's, if I had to go and give some unpopular decisions, you have to compartmentalize. It takes a bit of maturity as well. You know that there's emotions attached to all these decisions, but sometimes that's what you're paid to do. That's your job, and you need to go do it. And when you think about it, I use rationalizing a lot. This is for my own personal benefit. I'm not even talking about the benefit of the people yet, but rationalizing. Sometimes I'm on the end of this too, right? Is that if you're thinking about what's the long-term good. So if you're a really tough situation now, might mean that as a whole we all get to survive and prosper, survive a little bit longer, and then actually come out the other side and prosper, rather than avoiding making a tough decision and then everything going to the dogs, so to speak.
So do you consider the reaction or the response that you might expect to get from these people before you start speaking, or do you just go in thinking, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to communicate, and then just go straight in from that point of view?
I absolutely think about what the reactions that I'm going to get from the people and who they might be, because not everyone's got different reactions, everyone's got different needs, and the way that you communicate to different people really needs to be thought through. And what I've actually found is that maybe I'm lucky in this respect. So somebody that's at the CEO of a business, he doesn't have the benefit, or the trying to find the right word here. The CEO might not actually have the luxury of being able to consider people's feelings too much. Like they just have to make the hard decisions and they have to take all the blowback that comes with it. That's their role. Whereas somebody like myself that's a bit further down the chain but works with, has teams or works with teams or either a middle management or a senior management, but somewhere in that management level, it's a double-edged sword, but you can actually take a more personal approach to people and help them work things through. So I've actually found that for me is that if you are going into a situation to make some tough decisions, if you've actually had a genuine good relationship and you've got respect that you've actually already built up with these people prior, then you've got a lot to draw on. But if you go into those situations and you are morally defunct, or you've actually already burnt a lot of goodwill and collateral, when you've got these situations, you've got nothing to pull out of the there's nothing left in the bank, so to speak.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so people might not.
So how do you go about earning their respect, your people's respect? Because respect is something that's earned, not just given out. So what is it that you do to earn the respect of your people?
Genuineness is one.
Yep.
Yeah. So you genuinely listen. You genuinely care about someone. If they need a hand, you genuinely give it. So I'm a big believer of you help people, and don't really like fobbing things off, which is actually a bit of a hard one, because the other side of that one is that you also need to be able to delegate. I always feel really bad about delegating stuff to people, but that's actually a skill, is to be able to delegate effectively. But helping people, but then also you earn the respect of those around you, because how you conduct yourself in good times needs to be the same as how you conduct yourself when times are not good. And
that's right. That consistency of leadership, right, where everybody knows what to expect from you, regardless of how difficult or how easy the times are. That they know that they're familiar with the way that you're going to respond to them.
Yes, yeah, it builds trust, right? And you do
right.
what you say you're going to do, and your actions actually marry up with what the words that you're actually saying. Yeah, absolutely. Probably one other thing. I'll add this in. I was thinking about some of the behaviours that I've seen that haven't really worked. So it was, when I've worked with some people in the past, or seen it in other leaders or people managers, I should say, in various businesses, where the persona that they give for their teams is, or those around them, that they is one thing, and it can be maybe less than ideal, but then the other one that they project to upper management, or those where they think they might be have influence on them, is something completely different. And then you end up getting this disconnect between the I've had a past work experience where my team leader, the team was we probably weren't that happy, but our team leader had one outward appearance for her superiors, and how we were allowed to and what we did in front of anybody else that might give them a future job, versus how it was behind closed doors. So there's this like real disconnect, and that when you go back to that genuineness, you knew who was going to turn up, just depending on if somebody was watching that person or not. So,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but yeah, probably don't need to put that one actually in the thing, but that's right.
So, who's the most memorable and inspirational leader that you've met throughout your career so far?
Again, it comes down to like different people at different times for different reasons, but there is a common there's a common theme across them. I can think of two. So I mean, that first one that I was telling you about, my first boss was Albie Dean, and genuinely cared about his people, knew his craft well, different people in different situations at different times. So I mean, I think about two people. Well, my first boss, Albie Dean, he, as I said, he genuinely cared about his people, right? And he knew his craft really well, and he kind of led from the front too. So he was in there, got things done. So when the going was tough, he was the first one in, and he was the last one out. But he also expected of us, and we actually just became, better people. So that was really awesome. And then a more recent one was a guy named Jeff Myers, and he had this he just had a big brain, and he would be able to the vision and things that he can do and communicate it. Geez, he was good at sales, but he was just really good at galvanizing the people and bringing the people along. And he, again, genuinely cared about the people. And I don't know if there was a harder worker than Jeff. And he expected good from everyone. Well, actually, he expected great from everybody. But he was able to get the most out of people because he knew when to leave people alone, because they really knew that part of the business really well, or when they needed a lot more support. So he was able to do what we call situational leadership.
Yeah.
He dialed in on specific things and to how people actually needed it to be able to grow with people as well. And both of these people were really in tune with both Albie and Jeff, really in tune with their people and their teams. We're prepared to have the tough conversations, but we're also just really you just wanted to work for them because it just felt good, and you just did good things, and you just high performing teams. So yeah, those were.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's like when people, generally speaking, when people are getting hired for jobs in particular roles, especially in leadership, that the primary focus is on those technical skills. But just listening to what you're talking about now and reflecting on my own experience, the most influential leaders that were able to get the most out of their people were those that had that were able to lead their people through those basic human skills. So it's not so much the technical skills, that's just an expectation, right? It's those human skills, which is the difference between poor leaders, good leaders, and exceptional leaders.
100%. Yeah, so I've given you a couple of examples of people that really work really well. But hey, I've also got examples of when it hasn't, and it's kind of like it's the opposite. So technically, they might be extremely good. These other two guys are really good technically as well, but they just missed that people component, and it was it just wasn't a good experience. So absolutely. If I think a little bit more, Tiny, I think I might have mentioned this scenario to you once before. One of the lessons I learned when I got to Europe, and this is coming from New Zealand, where we've got we're a little island nation, and we've got several cultures here, but we are all it's not too different in how we approach life. You've actually got to get along with people in New Zealand, because there's not too many other places that you can go. Whereas if you're what I found in Europe was that there was a lot of borders on a map were just borders on a map. How people thought and how people did things, and what was actually normal might seem really foreign to me, or foreign to the guy that's about 50 or 100 kilometers away from someone. And that's for all sorts of reasons, from religion to the climate, for example. And what I've actually found, and I've learned this the hard way, was that it was when I was doing business development in Europe with Frontiera, it was the capability was a benchmark. And so it's like once you reach the minimum that you actually needed for that was you give it a tick. And what the biggest thing that was going to determine whether it's going to be a successful or not relationship was character, because everyone can be your mate when things are going well, but who's actually going to be there and do those, do the right things and still work the right way when things are not going so well.
Just to wrap it up here, I've just got one more question. And what advice could you offer to other leaders to help them better deal with adversity?
So what advice could I offer to other leaders to help them better deal with adversity? I would say know when to let things go and move on, so that you can better use your energy, time, passion the most effectively.
Hey, Luke, I just want to thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate it and look forward to having you back again sometime.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Anytime. Cheers,
All right.
buddy.
Thanks a lot, mate. Thanks.